Welcome back to the Roundtable. I'm Retro Nemo, and although Gravity Falls has been over for quite a long time, the conversation around the animated series never ceased to exist. Someone is finding the show for the very first time every single day, which means someone is finishing this show every single day as well, craving more content. That's where we come in. Not too long ago, we filled you guys in on what happened after Dipper and Mabel undid the Oddpocalypse. But what about all of the missing pieces? The parts of the show that wound up on the cutting room floor. You can tell from the title of this video, that's exactly what we're talking about today. We're talking about the most important deleted scenes and scrapped episodes of Gravity Falls that deserve to see the light of day. Let's go through mainly the second season of the show and learn what could have been, alternate character moments, action scenes, and more. You're watching Tuned In. Let's start with an alternate Bill Cipher intro. A dream sequence, assumably in the episode Dreamscapers, was planned where Dipper can be seen immersed in a mysterious red light before the roof of the Mystery Shack is ripped off and sucked into a black hole. Lightning generates from this hole only for a tiny Bill Cipher to fly out. Isn't he so cute? Bill snaps his fingers, summoning his cane, and tap dances in front of Dipper for a grand entrance. Bill tips his hat, which as a result tips the environment around Dipper until Bill readjusts his hat back into place. Revealing just a portion of his knowledge to Dipper, Bill multiplies into 3 versions of himself, each with a fact about Dipper. Maybe he read his Wikipedia page. Zinger. These 3 secrets being his fear of uncertainty, his real name not being Dipper, and his crush on Wendy. After Dipper freaks out, Bill explains that he was hired by Gideon to break into Stan's mind and steal the combination to the safe that contains the deed to the shack. As Dipper voices his concerns, Bill snaps once more, transporting Dipper to midair, causing our protagonist to descend at great speeds. Bill teases to Dipper that there's a way to his defeat, but instead of tipping him off now, he challenges Dipper to figure out a way into Stan's head, which is embodied onto the grass plane as a giant stone head. Dipper's close to becoming a pancake on the ground when he wakes up from the dream. He checks his hands only to see a note from Cipher that reads, "The dream was real, and look on your other hand." Dipper looks to find Bill chew a turkey. Very classy. This infers that originally Bill was able to be a lot more tangible with the real world, or at least his host once he entered the mind of his host. Though I prefer how they did it in this show a little bit more. Next up is a deleted scene from Scary-oke. The episode's storyboard pitch featured a longer, alternate introduction, where prototype versions of Agent Powers, named Agent Element originally, and Agent Trigger, work in the Department of Cover-Ups, the sign of which is covered up itself to read the Department of Nothing. An alarm goes off, which they try to cover up, but their monitor reveals energy signatures from Stan's portal and tracks back to Gravity Falls. This is how the agents originally arrived in town. Act 1 of Scary-oke was also different, with news reports of the aftermath of Gideon Rises, as opposed to the grand reopening of the Mystery Shack. The Pines family and the Mystery Shack employees were shown being interviewed for their thoughts on the whole Gideon situation. The idea to throw a party for the reopening was originally due to Mabel starting her own business, Crazy Mabel's Party Planning and Cat Sitting, which honestly is something Mabel probably did off screen anyways. Dipper also urged the townfolk to be alert on the next paranormal threat, warning that it's too premature to party, only to be disregarded as a crackpot. Classic Dipper. This, alongside customers at the shack treating paranormal activity as a joke, would have planted the seeds in the episode itself for Dipper to hastily work with the government agents. It still makes enough sense when he does in the show, so this wasn't really necessary, but it would have been nice extra padding for that plot point. Wendy and Seuss also converse about the earthquakes that's really Stan's portals tests, making the old man paranoid. And you know things are wrong when Stan freaks out. There was also an alternate take on Stan's reflection towards Dipper. When the zombies begin to invade, Stan is shown taking down all the signs that lead to the Mystery Shack and fear of the government agents. However, his conclusion is still the same, comparing Dipper to himself while staring at a literal reflection of himself in the gold plating of Journal 3. This would have led to an alternate battle with the zombies that include the golf cart exploding, pinatas being consumed, and blindfolded Toby determined, nearly hitting the zombies instead. Mabel would have also used the karaoke machine to combat the zombies and a shaken up soda can to blow off one of their heads, which is extremely dark and I love it. Another deleted scene from the episode would have featured Dipper finding a zombie survival kit, which he would open just to pull out a noose, implying the only way to survive is to kill yourself. You can see why this was cut. Now let's move on to scenes from Into the Bunker. Alternate scenes from this episode show the shapeshifter posing as the author, acting a bit more deranged yet welcoming towards Dipper and Wendy, cherishing a Pez dispenser and offering the 2 water. Very polite. Although there's a joke that if Wendy slips up and touches the red spigoter, it'll flood the place and drown them all, so not as polite. In an alternate ending, instead of Seuss recovering the laptop that reads property of F, he finds an ID for Project Polygon that belongs to Old Man McGucket, which would have likely served as a direct segue into the episode Society of the Blind Eye. There's an alternate end tag where Stan, walking out of the basement, encounters Dipper and Mabel. 2 parties both lie about their author-related adventures of the night and agree to sleep until 4 in the afternoon. But what about deleted scenes in everyone's favorite mini-golf-related adventure, the Golf War? Well, originally, Pacifica's remark on how money makes problems go away would have been followed up with her throwing a pile of money on the ground, to which townfolks grab and pick at the money like chickens. It's funny, but it's also kind of true. Dipper and Mabel's discovery of the little putty-ins was originally a tad different, with these little golf people dancing, feeding a miniature cow, and just living in their society until they noticed they're being monitored. From there, they asked the little putty-ins for their help. Sock Opera also had its fair share of deleted scenes. The cold open had a slightly different design and method of Dipper powering up the laptop, utilizing more wires and outlets. Dipper's confrontation with Bill Cipher in this episode went down a little differently as well. Bill reveals he was present for the events of Into the Bunker, impressed with how Dipper defeated the shapeshifter. Bill also claims dream magic can't hurt Dipper, creating a giant muscular arm that faces right through Dipper. In general, Bill's a lot more mobile and friendly with Dipper throughout this exchange. Once Bill possesses Dipper's body, he takes a bit more advantage of all 5 senses in the human body, putting hot sauce on cake and rubbing it on his face. Mabel's play also had different execution, inflating Mabel's ego and making her seem more independent than she actually is until her puppet meets Puppet Gabe. Sock Opera also had a different end tag, where Gabe sat in Greasy's diner by himself, taking out his guilt towards treating Mabel poorly through his puppets condemning him. This guy has issues, man. In Susan the Real Girl, the introduction to Hoo Ha Owl's Pizza-matronic Jamboree was different, with Stan observing the indulgent nature of the venue, inspired to obtain an animatronic after Willy Badger successfully pulls a load of money from customers. We also get a few different scenes of him contemplating and scheming of stealing the animatronics for his own benefit. But what about one of the show's darkest episodes, Society of the Blind Eye? Well, aside from Stan joining in Seuss's sing-along to Straight Blanchin', an incredible track I might add, the gang's infiltration into the Museum of History was altered. Originally, an elderly security guard was going to lock every conceivable entrance into the building, but cracked open a window because he didn't want it to get too drafty. His heart was in the right place, but he may want to brush up on dictionary definitions. Lazy Susan, waking up from her memory wipe, also would have seen her donate to the Society of the Blind Eye after being scammed into doing so by Blind Ivan. Another member speaks up on the morality of doing this to people, only for Ivan to wipe the minds of everyone who questions his authority. No, I take it back, this dude has issues. Not What He Seems has an incredible amount of deleted scenes. The original title was The Return of Stan, but was altered due to obvious reasons. When Agent Power and Agent Trigger confront the twins, which leads to Dipper questioning on their survival of the zombie attack, instead of Power remarking that he used Trigger as a human shield, he states that the zombie only ate part of his brain that contained a sense of humor, and that it was just a small bite. A joke in reference to Men in Black that ultimately found its way into the season 2 premiere Scary-oke. Makes you wonder how far in advance these episodes were in the pipeline before airing or even hitting post-production. The agents also revealed they've been watching the Pines family in a more direct manner that addresses their cameos throughout the first half of season 2. There's also a brief joke of Stan claiming there's nothing up his sleeve once he's in custody, only for everything a magician would have to literally shoot right out of his sleeve. One of the more interesting things scrapped from Not What He Seems was an entire scene where Agent Trigger takes Dipper and Mabel to the government-owned Historical Learning Institution. This is where Trigger was going to keep Dipper and Mabel before Child Services could pick them up. Kerpranked with Justin Kerprank was still involved with the episode, as the program was interrupted by a news report of Stan's arrest, being viewed by Dipper and Mabel on a television in their school. Dipper gets the idea to check the security tapes of the shack to prove Stan's innocence, but Mabel points out that they're trapped. It isn't long until Dipper remembers he has the president's key and uses it to unlock the door, escaping the facility after fighting off Trigger and another agent. Trigger's speech to Dipper would have went down after Dipper and Mabel restrained the agent. This would have been a great alternative to Manly Dan attempting to straight up murder Agent Trigger and the kids, especially as it relied on a plot point many people were awaiting years to return. Ultimately, it was scrapped for time. The episode A Tale of Two Stans would have originally featured a recap of previous events leading up to Ford walking out of the portal. Stan would have also had a bloody nose after being punched by Ford. Ford originally also had a long, untamed beard when emerging from the portal, generally appearing to be more dirty and barely scraping by as opposed to the cunning survivalist he is in the final version of the episode. The remove shot of Stan and Ford adjusting the glasses at the same time would have also occurred after Mabel questioned just what the heck was going on in their current situation. Dipper's realization that Ford is the author of the journals would have also been a gradual deduction as opposed to being fed to him by Stan's final line in the previous episode. It would have been little things like him seeing Ford's 6 fingers match exactly with the 6-finger journal. As opposed to being bullied about his 6 fingers on Glasshard Beach, Ford would have been confronted by Stanley at a different instance during this grand retelling of their past. The twins would have been in their bedroom as a young Ford held up his hand to the window. Stan would have promised Ford a life of adventure from said window as opposed to being right there on the shore. There also would have been more fun moments and banter of the twins growing up, such as watching movies and Stan creating a disturbance in class, swapping glasses with Ford in a lighthearted attempt to shift the blame. Before Stan and Ford were called into the principal's office for Ford to be offered the chance of a lifetime, initially the two were at the science fair, Ford teasing Stan over his footbot and Stan trying to grab the attention of female classmates to no avail, again highlighting both their dynamic and status as social outcasts. Stan staging his death by crashing his car was also cut. Stan actually put a dummy of himself in the driver's seat before pushing it off a cliff and crying for help. A member of the mafia would have been showed reading about Stan's death, remarking, "At least somebody got him." Dang, that's dark. What's most exciting about the deleted scenes of this episode for me is the original end tag, of which a heavily altered version of the sequence ended up as a cold open for the last Mabelcorn. Ford returning to his old room introduced in the episode Carpe Diem, finding it difficult to lay down due to everything feeling all wobbly. The time on his clock began to slow down, the rainbow light of the prism melts away, the environment turns black and white, and Ford hears a familiar cackle that transitions into the sudden appearance of Bill Cipher. Bill refers to Ford as his old partner and that for a while he was trying to keep the Pines family from uniting with their lost uncle. However, Bill finds the return of Ford a much more fun alternative to him being lost in the Nightmare Realm. Bill also hints that Stan's activation of the portal can serve to Cipher's advantage. Ford remarks that Bill has no dominion in this world, but Bill retorts that things change. The room begins to set on fire as the cameras close in on Bill before Ford abruptly wakes back up, his surroundings back to where they were prior to the inception. While I do find this more intense than the cold open in the last Mabel corn, it might have been better to hold this scene off until then as a way to build anticipation and tension as opposed to giving us a scene with Bill and Ford right then and there. It also allowed us to discover Ford and Bill's relationship in a way that made Ford momentarily untrusting. Speaking of the last Mabel corn, a brief fight was cut from the episode at the last second. The scene consisted of Mabel, Candy, Grenda, and Wendy engaging in combat against the unicorns, exchanging blows and all. While this scene was fully animated, it was ultimately cut for time. Moving on to roadside attractions, the opening of the episode originally had Mabel buying goods from the ice cream truck, the ice cream man striking a strong resemblance to Blind Ivan. Mabel requests that Dipper asks two girls hanging out outside the shack for a nickel to pay for their ice cream, to which Dipper gets cold feet. He still tries to go for it, but bombs horribly. I can relate, Dipper, it's okay. This was the original catalyst for Dipper's flirtatious mission in the episode, before being changed to another Dipper likes Wendy episode. Dipper's interaction with the girl in the corn maze Seuss gets stranded in was more fleshed out before being reduced to a montage. The German girl in question was going around to every horrible museum in America to laugh at it. Dipper joins in on this mocking as a way to hit things off. The original end tag for the episode would have seen Seuss stranded in the corn maze, etching "Help, I'm bored" into the maze. Two helicopter pilots find him and hand him a book of maze puzzles, which he's absolutely stoked by. Dipper and Mabel versus the future. During the scene where Dipper is holding on to the alien pod keeping Ford captive, he would have passed Robbie and Tambry making out, taking a selfie before being splashed by water caused by the ship's speed. A brief scene with Stan would have saw him find a long-lost ponytail extension and be mocked by Pacifica. While this was likely cut due for time, I also like to imagine this was cut due to the backtracking of Pacifica's character development. And finally, let's take a look at Weirdmageddon Part 1. In this episode, there was a cut scene where Bill mimics and taunts Ford moments before turning him into gold. Ford would have also spat on Bill's eye, a wad of saliva that Bill would have licked off with a tongue hidden underneath the eye itself. Ugh, there's just so much wrong with that. Dipper would have had a direct interaction with Chandra Jimenez, as she interviewed Dipper on the streets of the Oddpocalypse with a rat as opposed to a microphone, showing that she has actually snapped. Mr. Poolcheck and Manly Dan also appeared hiding in a dumpster, warning Dipper to find cover as they restart society in their hideout, implying they've been feasting off cardboard. It's just dark, man. We all know Bill Cipher is a showman, but did you know he was planned to have a Weirdmageddon song titled "It's Going to Get Weird"? An entire demo for this song was recorded and even storyboarded by a fan after its online release, but was cut for time. Bill, we're all waiting on that mixtape, man. You gotta drop it. An extended scene with the Field of Weirdness bubbles was also cut after being filmed, where live-action Dipper and Wendy, played by their voice actors Jason Ritter and Lindy Cardellini, are taken aback by their new physical forms. Dipper would be freaking out while Wendy admires her good looks. In Weirdmageddon 2: Escape from Reality, a parody of Snarf from Thundercats would have briefly appeared, disturbing a pixie when Dipper, Wendy, and Seuss arrive in Mabelland. Xyler and Kraz actually name the colors exclusively to Mabelland: Red Purple, Tubble Orange, and Awesome Marine. In these deleted scenes, Xyler and Kraz also introduced the 5 fun zones of Mabelland: Glowstick Forest, Hunk Mountain, Sweater Town, Scrapbooktopia, and Radical Beach. Back in the Pyramid, Bill's anger at the weirdness bubbles restricting him and his henchmaniacs would have saw more of Bill's allies and even Pacifier, originally named Demonicious, give insight into the situation. They would have explained to Bill why the weirdness bubble keeps them bound to the town. 8-Ball would have suggested that they just party harder, only for Bill to reduce him to dust. Oof. Yes, 8-Ball would have been killed by Bill prior to their defeat in Weirdmageddon 3. Bill also uses another random henchmaniac's bones as a coat after failing to give him more suggestions. While this would have been more brutal, it would have preserved the brutal unpredictability we came to expect from Bill that faded for a while after he unleashed Weirdmageddon. One more piece of bad news would have set Bill off when Keyhole runs in, letting Bill know Gideon allowed Dipper to escape into Mabel's bubble. Bill would have erupted into flames, and it would have been a stark contrast to how Bill behaves in the final version of Escape from Reality. Despite the setback, he's still cocky and upbeat. Originally, in the episode's climax, Dipper would have actually murdered Dippy Fresh. Dippy Fresh walks up to Dipper, claiming Dipper's hat is on backwards before actually flipping it backwards, only for Dipper to retort, "Your head is on backwards," and snap Dippy Fresh's neck. Oh my god. In the third part, Weirdmageddon 3: Take Back the Falls, little Gorny, who was previously devoured by the Summerween trickster, would hold on to hope that Ford could undo Bill's weirdness. This would be accompanied by Pacifica and Sheriff Blubs mourning their own losses. It's a very dark opening to the episode, but it actually would have fitted well and set the tone for the series finale. Cthulhu would have also had a cameo, speaking in complete sentences. He would have been guarding the pyramid when he spots a helpless kid. Before he can eat the kid, the Shackatron throws Greasy's diner at the monster, making a triumphant alternate entrance. An extended version of the credits sees much more festivities for the Pines family and friends. Face painting singing with Headshin, Mabel dancing with McGucket, Dipper playing the tuba with an audience of Mabel and Wendy, Mabel painting Robbie's nails, Stan and Ford fighting over a female's affection, and so much more. All of this would have accumulated in the revelation that the credits is actually a scrapbook Mabel's presenting to her class, chronicling how she spent her summer vacation. I'm not crying, you're crying. Now let's talk about some scrapped episodes in the series. There's actually a scrapped episode that was meant to be a parody of the movie Labyrinth. In a writer's panel podcast with JG Quintel, Hearst revealed an episode for the middle of the first season. The episode would have been a parody of the movie Labyrinth. Dipper as the brother who was stolen, and Mabel as the reluctant sister who would rather hang out with the David Bowie Groblin King. It would have begun with Mabel watching a Labyrinth-like movie for the 9th time, and Dipper complaining about it so much, she wishes him away. The B-plot would have followed Dipper, who reveals he hates the movie because he's terrified of puppets, and how he overcomes this fear. The episode was scrapped because Disney executives didn't think anyone would understand the reference. But they're so wrong. Another scrapped episode was a B story with a Stan and Wendy heist. In this B-plot, Wendy gets grounded by her father for frequently getting into trouble. To blow off steam, Wendy shoplifts from the Mystery Shack but is caught by Stan. Instead of being punished, Wendy is offered an alliance with Stan as he sees a gift within her. There would be a dope training montage of Stan training Wendy to become the best shoplifter she can be. Ready for their biggest heist, Wendy sets their sights on stealing a diamond from the Gravity Falls History Museum. They attempt to steal the diamond but are caught. Stan takes the fall for Wendy, claiming everything was his idea and Wendy was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Stan later tells Wendy in jail that he's lived his life, but she still has one and she should live it to the fullest. It would have been great to see more Stan and Wendy bonding. Unfortunately, this would have been only about 9 minutes of screen time, and unable to think about a good A-plot to accompany this episode and fill the other 13 minutes, the B-plot ended up on the cutting room floor. There was another scrapped episode titled Gum Commercial. In it, Dipper and Mabel compete in a contest for a twin-heavy gum commercial, which takes them to the Twinstitute, where they meet the other twin competitors and realize they're the most boring twins ever. The message would have been about how every twin is unique, likely taking inspiration from Alex Hirsch and his own twin sister Ariel, but the show's crew found the episode a bit too dumb to fully realize. The final scrapped episode we're talking about is Headless Hunter. In it, Stan disconnects Dipper and Mabel from technology after firmly believing it's evil by embarking on a camping trip. During this trip, they're hunted by a headless demon hunter. At one point in this episode, they would have stayed in the cabin of the hunter and turned on the lights in the room only to find the heads of other hunters mounted on the walls. The crew find it to be much creepier than they anticipated and scrap the idea entirely. Wow, that was a lot, but hey, in this case, a lot is just barely enough. Which deleted scene or scrapped episode was your favorite? Which one would you love to see animated one day? In fact, there's a chance we could get something along those lines. This isn't just lying to ourselves like we usually do either. There's reason to believe that we could get more Gravity Falls content in the future, but that's a video for another time. For now, comment below your favorite deleted scenes or tweet your thoughts to us at Roundtable Vids, or for my own thoughts, follow my own Twitter at itsretronemo. We're also on Instagram.
And special thanks to Artwakoda for creating an awesome thumbnail. For more of his work, you can find him on Instagram and Tumblr at Artwakoda, and subscribe to his YouTube channel. Links down below.
Help the Roundtable grow by either becoming a member of this channel or supporting us on Patreon. Link in the description. If you enjoyed this video, throw it a like and subscribe to the Roundtable for more great cartoon content like Steven Universe, OKKO, The Amazing World of Gumball, and much more. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have an awesome day. I'm Retronemo, this is Gravity Falls video, and I'll see you next time. Peace.